Hey, y'alls. It's me again, Dr. Edwards. And this week I wanted to put together a video about our first milestone. As you can see here, I have the final project guidelines and rubric for the entire capstone project, right? So this is the big document we're looking at here, and I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. As we scroll on down here, you can see that this is the main overview. And we finally get down to the individual milestones. And here we are. All right, milestone one, statement of purpose and research question. All right, so before we dive into this, I want to make sure you pause this video, read over this, okay? And then we're going to continue on over to our specific milestone, milestone one, all right? And it has a lot of the same information, but it gives a little bit more for the specific things that you need to do for this milestone. First up, you're going to want to state a real world problem. Okay, there are so many. Really, the sky's the limit here. Well, within reason. Obviously, y'all aren't going to be going out and doing a year of field work or anything like that. So yeah, what I suggest about focusing in on a real world problem is using your interests. All right, I've shared in various other parts, like it's really clear in my own background and experience that I get interested in something and I throw myself into it, right, and spend a lot of energy and effort trying to understand it. But it always starts with what something that sparks my interest. All right. So you all know I got a crazy thing about how environmental resources are used from prehistory all the way up to today. Right. So using that kind of as a basic example is kind of like a general interest avenue, right? Or avenue of his interest. I then kind of focus it in, right? Like things that I see in the news or read about in scholarly literature, things like that. I was kind of jotting some notes down, and given my interests, right, about natural resource use and social and cultural values and norms and the conflicts that exist between them, right? Um, yeah, some topics that readily came to mind were like the North Dakota Access Pipeline, all right? Recently, well, and continuing, pretty significant conflict going on here between the federal government, the businesses, corporations that are manufacturing and constructing the pipeline, and indigenous communities. Whose cultural resources, cultural heritage is being significantly impacted by these federal and corporate decisions. Okay, so you see how I just took a kind of a broad interest and focused it then into a very specific case. All right, that you could then do some good research on. Oh, another one that came to my mind: fracking. All right. Oof. Wow. Yeah. Kind of a long story short, I ended up doing a job interview in North Texas in a community that actually sued a corporation for fracking. And I think, if I remember right, they were like the first, and they kicked all the fracking groups. That sounds bad. Sorry. They kicked all the frackers. Ooh, that sounds worse. They kicked them out. They wouldn't let them do any fracking. And there, yeah, chaos and conflict ensued. All right. Another, kind of looking at environmental resources and the conflicts that exist between policy, federal agendas, national agendas, and local communities that are impacted by these choices and actions. All right. Yeah. Here in Oregon, where I live, clear cutting, logging is a huge industry. And it without it, the state would go under. I mean, it is one of the primary industries of the Pacific Northwest. But it also creates a lot of conflict. I mean, I don't know if y'all remember the spotted owl controversy, right? Where all this land had to be set aside for habitat protection for a particular species. Another great example of kind of the conflict between environmental values and various communities, stakeholder groups, all right, from the federal government all the way down to local communities. Another one that I thought about, and again, none of these are just kind of brainstorming ideas to kind of get you thinking about how you can take your particular interests, focus them in on a particular problem. All right. Was it the last one that I was kind of playing around with was impact to marine ecosystems, right? Like all the watershed drainage, all the chemicals that get washed out to sea. You look in areas with heavy livestock or agricultural production in coastal zones, and the all this runoff has incredible impact on the adjacent marine ecosystem, which impacts fisheries, recreation and sports. Yeah, the economics, like how people actually survive, how they make a living. So, yeah, just some ideas to throw them on out there. Now, obviously, you are going to have to focus that in on a particular thing. So, you want to start with a real world problem. And given that we're all, or you all, are environmental sustainability concentrations, I would suggest looking at a conflict between or a conflict surrounding a natural resource. Okay, and its relationship or connections to communities, groups, right? Be that local groups, kind of regional groups, national level. There's always issues of scale involved. Yeah, so let me use my some of my background to give some more insights here. So obviously, you all are not writing a dissertation, so I don't expect anything of that depth. Uh, but it still serves as a relatively good kind of model. So I was interested in natural resource use in a particular place in Mali, West Africa. All that was born out of my experience in the Peace Corps there. So you may have some personal experience in something that gives you some extra insight into it, some unique perspective, right? And that is always valuable. So I took my interest of natural resource use, focused it in on the relationships between people surrounding a highly controversial practice, wildlife use. Okay, so you see how I take the broader problem, conflicts between humans and environmental resources, right? And then focus it in on a specific issue. Okay. Then you're going to need to kind of pick apart your question. It takes time and practice to be able to articulate a good research question. All right. I wanted to, on most of my research that I do, it's all about developing an inside understanding of a particular practice, right? So for my work in West Africa, my primary research question is understanding the relationships between natural resources and humans, various communities. And in particular, I'm really interested in networks, right? How these systems function. Okay, so I'm a systems thinker, and I do a lot of structural, functional kind of perspectives on things, kind of looking at broader systems of interaction. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to get too far off on the deep end there. I do want to kind of highlight some good materials, resources, approaches, strategies, things like that to help you all out. You'll see in the written portion of this announcement that I have several articles that I pulled up, all using Shapiro, your new best friend. Um, they well, they're very focused, concentrated articles, and they may not speak to you or your particular interest. They still serve as a good model to try to emulate, right? Because the goal of this white paper is to produce a publishable article, right? A publishable paper. And so, using a good example of a published article is a good idea. And you'll see that each one, right, kind of gives a general problem. They focus in on the background information about it, right? What do you need to know about in order to analyze that problem, that issue? Okay. Uh, yeah. So let's go on over to Shapiro here. Uh, Boom, have this all set up. And you'll see here research guides. Okay, the general search bar is helpful, but I think you might actually be better served by checking research guides. And you'll see this takes you on over to another page, and you'll scroll on down and look for anthropology. Click. And here's the anthropology research guide. What I would suggest here, you got a couple of different kind of categories of things you can look for: books and ebooks, articles, web resources, writing and presentation help. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Yeah. So I'm gonna pick finding articles here. And this is what I used to dig up those articles that I shared with you all in the announcement. And you'll see that we have a couple of search engines here that are kind of oriented towards anthropological, social science, biological science, environmental science. All of these are going to be kind of found here. And you'll see down here Google Scholar, different than a normal Google search. Okay, Google Scholar is actually going to pull up real peer-reviewed work, which is helpful here. But it's not a normal Google search, so don't fall for that. Use Google Scholar if you're going to do any of that. But before you go there, I would actually suggest checking out each of these. And to give you an example, I'm going to hit JSTOR. This is one of my faves. Boom! And we'll just pick a topic. How about, I don't know, fracking. Okay. Look! We have all sorts of resources about the topic of fracking. Now, this is a really nice start. This might actually give you kind of some background information about what fracking is, particular issues that are associated with it. So that would kind of be like the first part about stating your problem and giving you background information and actually that you would use to analyze the problem. And you can be more specific, like you may be interested in fracking in a particular place, like, oh, I don't know, fracking in Texas. And let's see here. Aha! We have some more Texas exempt wells. Where does fracking fit in? So this looks like it's a natural resources journal. Looks like something pretty, valuable here. Now, Journal of Real Estate Literature, not so much for our interests. Okay. Yeah, and you're gonna be. I cannot express how important it is to actually allow and provide yourself time to do this. This is not a quick process. Okay. So be sure to set good time aside to invest in this sort of research. Okay, because without it, your capstone is going to suffer. All right. So yeah, look at this nice thing about JSTOR is a bunch of downloadable PDFs, right? And I like these. All right, it means this is helpful stuff because you're going to be sitting behind a computer and wherever you are, right? And you're going to need access to things, right? And it's come a long way since I don't know 20 years ago. Um, anyway, don't mean to get off track there. So yeah, that's a quick little introduction in how to explore research topics. All right. Let's see here. There's Sage. I should take you to what? EBSCO. No, Sage Journals. Yeah, and look, you can see social science and the humanities, right? Life and biomedicine, biomedical sciences. I would think that actually social sciences and humanities, and maybe, well, depending on your research interest, health sciences might be also of value here. But yeah, all sorts of good things that you can check out. Yeah, academic search complete is EBSCO, if I remember right. Yeah, there we go. Anywho, I don't want to spend too much time discussing how to do searches. Let me close that on out. And let's go back to our milestone one. So I've talked a bit about, statement of purpose problem, uh, about how to find specifics around the location of the problem and the populations and resources involved. So that's the sort of information you would get by doing some basic background research. And you're going to want to be able to find material that speaks to your issue, that offers insights into it, and supports your problem, your question to your problem. All right. Because you'll see here you have to develop an anthropological research question that has to be viable and feasible. Like I said before, you're clearly not going to be doing like a year's field work or anything on this, so I would steer away from anything that would require such work. This is probably going to be much more of a literature-based capstone. You might be able to interview some folks or something like that, um, but you don't have institutional review board clearance or things like that to work with human subjects. So yeah, let's avoid trying to go do some ethnographic survey of some group somewhere. Rather, you're going to be focusing your energy on finding the literature about such things. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, let's see here. So you're going to develop your research question based on your selected problem. So, like I said before, I'm interested in the conflicts between human and natural resources. I then focus that down onto issues surrounding wildlife use. Okay, so broader research interest, all right? Focus it down to the question, and then you're going to kind of expand it out to have to have the research, the basic information that you're going to need to explore that. Okay. You also need to be able to explain the value of what you're doing to not just your concentration area, environmental sustainability, but to the discipline as anthropology as a whole. All right. So using my some of my work as an example here, I think I explained before. I use a very unique perspective to look at the things that I look at, and it's all about better understanding globalization. I essentially use a very unique lens on a unique thing, wildlife use, and I use that as a means to look at processes and interactions of globalization. Right? I actually provide a counter narrative to these dominant ideas of Western centric globalization that everyone wants to be like the West. Okay, some do, some don't, and that's kind of my point. That you have this thing called agency where people pick and choose to serve their own interests. Yeah, so that speaks to the discipline as a whole. I'm actually contributing to the literature on globalization, right? And then for my specific concentration area, environmental anthropology, right, I am looking at the conflicts and relationships between wildlife resources and communities that rely upon them. Okay? Yeah, and of course, you're going to need to cite all your work APA style, all right, proof it. This is to be a 3 to 4 page. I'm not such a stickler for page limits. What matters more to me is that you take the time to explain what you're doing, all right? So if it takes you 5, 6 pages, fine, all right? Don't stress about that, right? But if you're ending up with like 2 pages, I would think it would be pretty difficult to address what you're being asked to in such short a space. Okay, we will. It's actually better to offer more that you can then refine down, because we often find that we restate things or we conflate things. And so, through our revision process and peer review and faculty review, you'll be able to refine those things down. That's a lot easier than having a little bit and trying to expand it, if you would. Yeah, I hope that helps. Anyway, I very much encourage you to look over the example articles that I have posted up there. Make use of Shapiro Library and the resources it offers you for doing good background research. And do not hesitate to call me, text me, email, set up a Skype meeting to go over any questions or concerns that you have. All right. You can send me draft ideas by email. All right, before you submit, and I will give a look at them and give you some initial feedback before you ever submit it. All right, doesn't get much better than that. So please don't hesitate. Take me up on my offers to help you. And yeah, reminder: there is no discussion this week, but when you submit your milestone one, you also need to post it to the week 3 discussion board, all right? Because next week we're doing a workshop where we're going to be offering constructive feedback of your milestone one. Okay, so you submit it, follow the link to submit it, and also post it in the week 3 discussion board. Cool. Look forward to y'all's work, and take care. Have a good one, y'alls. Oh my God.